HD74250 says, did you have a chance to try the Roadmaster? The seat seems to leave more room for the legs, as it is the only thing I would change on the Chieftain. I feel too close from the tank. Signed, Jeff. Jeff, I did actually have a chance to try the Roadmaster, and I did answer that in a previous question. I do feel that I don't think you gain a lot more room. I do think that it maybe comes back just a little bit more. You might gain about an inch of depth back here, but it's nothing that, if you feel cramped on the Chieftain, you're probably going to feel cramped on the Roadmaster. That's my guess. Yeah, that's about the best I can answer that for you. Andy Madison says, if you had the opportunity to do it all over again, would you still have purchased the Chieftain? I've read several reviews that have said that the digital display in the center of the dash can be difficult to read in certain lighting situations. Have you found that to be true? Has your wife ridden on the motorcycle with you as a passenger? If yes, did she find it to be comfortable? If I had the opportunity to do it all over again, Indian did something very smart. They came out with the Chieftain, and then they came out with the Roadmaster. I can tell you right now, if they came out with the Roadmaster and they came out with the Chieftain a year later, nobody would buy the Chieftain. I mean, actually, I think I like the look of the Chieftain better, especially with the luggage rack back here. I like the lines. Not everybody's a fan of a big trunk in the back. I don't mind it. It's certainly a comfortable bike. To be honest with you, if they were both sitting in the showroom at the time, I'd have bought the Roadmaster. I love that bike. I'm very comfortable on that bike. So yes, I would have bought the Roadmaster in black with a tan seat. That would be my choice. The digital display in the center of the dash, yes, it does get hard to read in certain lighting conditions, but it's not a drastic thing. It's not like, oh my gosh, I have to return this bike because I can't read the display. There isn't that much information in there that really that you need all the time. Your gear is in there, what gear you're in. Your radio station, your TPMS is in there, but all the important stuff. I think I said this in my other review, which hasn't been posted yet, so I don't blame you for asking. Your speed, your tachometer, and your fuel gauge are all in there. So, are all analog. I'm sorry. So, it's. I don't need the digital display, but I don't think it's as hard to read as people say. I don't really have an issue with polarized sunglasses. It does get harder, but in general, there are just very few times when the sun is hitting it directly and I can't see it. Has your wife ridden on the motorcycle with you as a passenger? If yes, did she find it to be comfortable? Well, my wife does not ride on motorcycles. She just doesn't like motorcycles at all. My friend Sally has ridden on this with me several times, and I believe she has found it to be comfortable. Would you say that the passenger seat is pretty comfortable? Yeah? Okay. So yeah, she finds it to be comfortable. I always shy away from these questions of, is this comfortable, is that comfortable, because it just so depends on you or on your passenger and what they find comfortable. So I shy away from that a little bit, but the passenger that I've had has found it to be comfortable. RJTKWABLE says, I'm looking for a daily rider for the warmer months. How is the Chieftain held up through your usage? And do you feel it would be a reliable daily ride? Also, how is the gas consumption and mileage? I think the Chieftain is a great daily bike. I use it as a daily bike. It's not the smallest bike out there. It's not something that is, it's not like a little sport bike that you're going to hop on, or like the Scout that you'll hop on and go out and just ride 6 miles or 7 miles. But it's been great as a daily commuter. I'm okay, really. Just like leaves are attacking me. Reliability wise, this thing has been fantastic. I've had no issues. None. I mean, I always say, okay, the windshield rattles. Happens on a lot of bikes that have adjustable windshields. But reliability wise, I haven't had any issues. I've had my 500 mile service, and I'm about 70 miles away right now from 5,000 miles, so I think there's a service due at about 5,000 miles, but no, I haven't had any issues. I've really found this to be an incredibly reliable bike. Mike Vining says, I like the Chieftain, but can't get past those gaudy fenders. I know that's part of the whole Indian history, blah, 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 but is there a fender delete or other option, or are you stuck with what you get? Thanks for the info. Okay, got to be honest with you. When I first saw the Chieftain, I was turned off by the front fenders. I couldn't get past it. I was exactly like you. I said, it was nice. I sat on it. I said, this is good. This feels really nice, but ugh. I didn't like the fenders, and I didn't like the fairing. I wasn't used to it at all. It grew on me. The thing that sold me on this bike was riding it. I think I have a video out there called The Day the Judge Ended and the Indian Began. And that was the day that I rode this in the parking lot for the first time, and I just fell in love with it. So there is no fender, there's no delete option for that fender. That is the Indian heritage way. And honestly, because I've learned so much about the brand in the last, several months that I've owned this bike, I don't think I'd have it any other way. I would feel awkward riding an Indian with a fender that looked like it was, from a Harley, for example. That's part of what makes an Indian an Indian. So, that being said, if you buy it and you feel like, I just can't get used to the fender, you could. I don't see why you couldn't take it to a custom shop, a metal fabrication shop, and have them cut that and paint it. I've actually seen custom Chieftains or custom Indians without the valenced fender. So I think it's possible to do that, but it's certainly not a dealer option. But I would give yourself a chance to get used to it. I actually like kind of the exclusivity of it right now. I mean, everybody out there has a Harley. I mean, you see them, just look out in the street, and 80% of the bikes going by are Harleys. When this pulls up anywhere, people have a couple of reactions. Either, wow, that's really different. What is that? That's really neat. Or you get people that say, oh my gosh, that's an Indian. You're riding an Indian. What year is it? I had a guy tell me at a gas station, he said, I've loved Indians because my grandfather took my grandmother on their first date on a 1938 Indian, and she fell off the back and she broke her elbow, and then they fell in love and they got married. So you learn to love that history. And again, I'm not an expert on Indian history at all, but I'm learning so much respect for this brand and what it has meant. All of that doesn't mean anything to you as far as can you get rid of the valence fender. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But I would say the option is out there to buy it and then bring it to a shop, or even go to a shop and ask them if they would, if you buy an Indian, can they remove that valence fender if it's something that you just don't like. Dealer wise, no, it's not going to be an option. Gus Tinsley says, how does it handle twisty roads? I know it's not a sport bike. Can it run the speed limit or a little faster when the road gets tight? Okay, I'm thrilled that you asked that question, because one of the things that I'm happiest with about this bike is the handling. This bike, I'm telling you, I'm amazed. You look at this thing and it looks like a behemoth. It looks like this 860-pound bike, and you say, you're used to, and I don't mean anything bad about Harleys, but I know some models scrape pegs pretty easily. This doesn't. It doesn't scrape pegs, and the handling is so light. The front rake is pretty steep, and the bars are pretty wide, and my gosh, you get into twisty roads and it feels amazing. It feels lighter than my Suzuki Boulevard C50 that I had. It feels lighter than a Victory Judge. I don't know if I could say it feels lighter than the Hyosung that I started off with, because that was a 250 and I think it weighed about 38 pounds. So handling wise, my gosh, it's a rock star. I love this bike. Handling is phenomenal, and on twisty roads, yes, you can keep up with the speed limit on all but the tightest of corners. I mean, but as far as any other bagger out there, I think you're way better off on this bike handling-wise than anything else out there. I'm very impressed with it in that regard. Jorg Wardenga, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, says, I'm from Germany and I had the possibility to test an Indian Chieftain 2 weeks ago. The bike was very impressive. As a Harley rider, I can say this. My question, I had the feeling that the rear cylinder is very warm and it produces tremendous heat and is very unpleasant to the upper legs. Do you have the same problem? Greetings from Germany, Jorg. being a bike that is over 1800 cc, there is certainly engine heat. It is air cooled and oil cooled. It's not liquid cooled, so you do get a lot more heat. The rear cylinder, of course, gets hotter because it doesn't get the airflow that the front cylinder does. But I also feel as though this puts out less heat than my Victory Judge, which was 1731 cc. So it's kind of relative. I don't know what you're riding as far as right now, but in this class of bikes, the big air-cooled V-twins, I would say this does very well with heat management. It's got some very large fins that help to cool off the cylinders, and I do notice actually some, on my right leg I get some heat, but it's really not drastic. I will say that the Roadmaster, and I think possibly, I'd have to look this up, but I think that the Chieftains for the year 2015 might actually have like this little, it's kind of a strange thing, this little scoop, this little plastic thing that goes around the front cylinder and then goes to the back and tries to bring air to that. So maybe that resolves it a little bit, but yes, I do notice some heat. I don't notice it as being a deal breaker in my in my train of thought. Ryan Wanch says, very cool once again. Guess I'm looking for overall quality of the bike, chrome, leather, paint, etc. Are there any plans for non-Indian upgrades? Well, Ryan, that's an excellent question. I am not a huge fan of Polaris's paint jobs, both Victory and Indian. They seem to scratch a little bit too easily. The clear coat on the Indians is not perfect. It seems to be a little. It's nothing flashy that's just going to blow you away, and I do think that maybe it might be duller than what you see on other bikes. I think they do that as part of the appeal of, look, this is a heritage bike, and that goes back to the 20s and 30s. I would prefer better paint. That being said, I don't think I've really run into an issue with it. I've just heard people mention that the paint is soft, the clear coat is thin. That's what I've heard. I really haven't had an issue. The quality of the leather, for me with the black leather seat, this has held up very, very well. I found this to be great. Quality of the chrome has been great. I have no complaints in that regard. The people that have opted for the tan seats and the tan bags have seen, I think, some issues with fading, and I believe Indian has fixed that for 2015. They've come up with a different type of leather. It's dyed a different way, and it does apparently get rid of the fading issue that they were having. My experience with this has been great. The chrome's been great. The leather is great. The paint is decent. Nothing I would really not buy the bike because of. As far as if there are any plans for non-Indian upgrades, I've done a couple. Little things. I've put on an Aeromuck heel shifter. My GPS, things like that. My cruiser caddy. I think everything else is actually an Indian part. I'm always looking for different exhaust pipes. I like the ones I have, but I always feel like there might be something better coming down the road, so to speak. Jekyll and Hyde has pipes that I love, but I believe they're like $4,000 or something, and they have a little button that electronically opens a baffle to give you, quietness when you want it, and then you open it up and you get a nice deep sound out of it. So plans, I do have a couple of Kiriakin doodads on here. I've got a little chrome part around my tail light and stuff like that, but nothing really major yet. But I would say exhaust would be the next thing, and at some point I'm hoping that a company like Witch Doctors will come along and give us maybe better air intake, something like that. So those might be the main things, would be air intake and exhaust, and at that point maybe I'll go to something like a Cobra fuel processor or Power Commander, something like that.